A very, very warm welcome from all of us here. We have a packed lecture theatre. Students, staff, alumni, faculty, we're all here.
Well, thank you for such a warm welcome.
Tim, I won't go through any preliminaries because we'd like to get on with the questions if we can. And I've got my first question, which is, you've got a unique leadership role there in space. So even though it wasn't planned for this kind of leadership role, are there things you learned at London Business School that have been useful to you?
You know, it's a great question. The fact that you go through a program with such a qualified staff and faculty and surrounded by peers that are such a great influence. And for me, it was really a combination of both Columbia Business School and London Business School, and it's very difficult to split the two because they were so integrated. But for me, it's sort of a learning process. We're all a work in process, and through both Columbia and London Business School, I felt like I understood organizations better, I understood myself better, how teams work together, and those are really the skills that I think that I took forward from the experience of both those great institutions.
Thank you very much. Can we pass on to the second question?
Hi Tim, good to talk to you. Thank you for this opportunity firstly. I'm curious to know how you would describe space to someone who hasn't been there, which I suspect is most of us here. Thank you.
I'll do my best to try to describe what it's like here. For one, all of us are enthralled when we go to the window because our Earth is absolutely beautiful. And sometimes, when I've been taking photographs at the cupola, which is a set of 6 windows in a circle and a large window in the center, or the lab window, which has pristine optical qualities, when I look out on the planet, sometimes it is completely breathtaking. Like, for example, the Bahamas and the different colors of reefs. When we see the sunrises and sunsets, sometimes they look like they're out of a science fiction movie. They're just so surreal. The thin lines of colors, the clouds in the horizon, watching thunderstorms at night that cover the large portion of a continent, seeing the roads that connect the different cities, and then in contrast to how beautiful our planet is, when it's daytime and your eyes can't see the stars, the black that you see really it's stunning. It's like a new kind of black where it makes you recognize that we're just one little planet and we're very alone. So I think those are the things that to me typify what it's like to be up here. And then of course we work very hard, and being able to float in space is amazing. I get better and better at it. So I think yeah, it's a tremendous experience. I feel very lucky.
Next one is from an EMBA student, Elsa Thomas.
Thank you. Tim, I'm really interested to know what you think the biggest disruption you foresee in the space exploration industry is, and how you think that will change the way we view space exploration programs and the value it brings to us.
I think the future is very exciting, and I think that there will be some major disruptions over time. From my perspective, the two things that would be probably the most disruptive in terms of the ability for us to have long duration spaceflight and go well beyond low Earth orbit would be to have life support systems that are nearly bulletproof and very durable, and also transportation systems that will take us away much faster, because we need to be able to accelerate and get to destinations much more quickly. So those, I think, are two areas in which we'll have to watch. You know, in the commercial space industry, it's interesting to watch this development because most of the companies that plan on sending people to space will take them to a suborbital flight, and it's much more difficult to get to orbital flight. So that's going to have to be a transition that they make. And it's a challenging one too, because spaceflight is full of risks. And in some ways you could argue that human spaceflight for the initial stages and the business model conflict, because when there is an incident, then it's going to be very difficult for a company to overcome, I believe. But I think over time, as we develop systems more reliably, then we'll be able to see that. For me, I think one of the most interesting areas will be some of the robotic ideas of sending crafts to near-Earth objects for mining, because that becomes clearly a business case where it's a technological development and what the return on the investment will be. So I look forward to watching companies be able to extend their ability to go beyond low Earth orbit to some of these bodies that are well beyond the current distance that we've done before.
Thank you. Daniel is the next one, MBA 2017.
Hi, Tim. You mentioned that one of the things that you learned at London Business School is about yourself and about how teams work. So I'd be really curious if you're stuck with the same two people for, I heard, half a year and nobody can really get away. What's the most important ingredient, or is there a process in place to deal with conflict?
No, it's a great question. All of us have been through very extensive training in small teams. And we're a small team here, but actually the team that makes this human spaceflight possible is a tremendously large team. And for both this small team and also the extended team, I think the most important aspects really are trust, because trust is fundamental for any effective group, whether it's a small one or a large one, and then respect for each other, because from respect comes your actions and how you look out for each other, and your internal motivations to help each other. So those two elements are absolutely key in my mind.
Alexis, the EMBA 2016.
Hi, Tim. I was just wondering if being up there in space, it's impacted your thoughts on finance and economics. So, for instance, should we be doing more to think globally rather than just locally?
We know I'm an emba-global, so we're very focused on the global piece of business, and I think it's absolutely vital. From my perspective, what you see is something that gives you a very visceral sense of how commerce works around the planet, because we see airplane contrails that cover the globe. We see ships crossing through the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal, and various ports around the world. At nighttime, you see cities that are brilliant with roads that connect all of these cities. You see fishing boats off the coast of lots of Asian countries in particular at night. And so what you see is this very, very vibrant and busy world that has everything to do with commerce. And I think as transportation systems improve, as international relations improve, I think we'll just see more and more of this interconnectedness, and I think it's absolutely vital in the business world.
Catherine, staff member.
Hi, Tim.
Hello, Tim.
Do you have any spare time? And if so, how do
Hi.
you spend it?
You know, we have some spare time, but you'd be amazed at how busy we are every day. We get up around 6:30 in the morning. We have a daily planning conference about an hour later, and we go until, like right now, it's approaching 8 o'clock at night. And so when I finish here, I'll probably call my wife, do some email. So our days are very full. But the three U.S. crew members, all of us in particular, are very fascinated with photography, and especially when you have a good pass, that's what we call it, when you have our orbit that covers a landmass or maybe a particular area that we have an interest in. All of us are huddling at the windows with our photography equipment and trying to get more pictures. And it is an amazing subject to be able to take pictures of, because the planet is beautiful and there are so many different things that you can capture in photography. And I think all of us make this very strong attempt to try to relay what we see. And just like when you go on vacation, you take that great picture and it doesn't quite look the same as what you've seen. It's always a constant challenge for us to be able to look out the window and be able to capture what we're seeing so that we can share this experience and also have this great memory for us when we leave. And so I think that's probably my primary pastime up here.
Nalisha, who's also a member of staff.
Hi from Earth, Tim. My name is Nalisha. It's a pleasure to talk to you. My question is, when you're up there and you can see the whole world, what does that do for your perspective? Do you think that, the small things don't really matter? Or is it the small things that really matter, like fresh bed sheets and a nice glass of Sauvignon Blanc, for example?
We know there is time to be philosophical up here, and you can look out the window and you see places on the earth, and if you know somebody there, it's kind of exciting, right? I have a good friend from Mauritius. I didn't even know where Mauritius was until I met him in the emba-global program, for example. But I have friends now, especially through my relationship with fellow students and faculty at London Business School and Columbia Business School. I feel like I know people all over the planet. So for me, it has a special meaning to be able to look down and see the planet and a particular place where I know somebody. But in terms of small details versus the big picture, in our business in particular, it is all about the details, because especially on launch and landing, on our spacewalks, robotic operations, but even in the experiments we do here, if we don't have things nearly perfect, then things don't work out well. And so we are very focused on the details. And in our business, the details are necessary in order to make the big picture work, because we work in a very, very complex system. The vehicle itself that we're in right now is amazingly complex, but the system itself is very complex because we have international partners, we have an International Space Station program, a logistical train that flies ships up here, that brings us our supplies, manufacturers really around the globe because of the international partnership that provide both the experiments and the resupply for equipment on board. And so for us, really, the details are key. But it's also really nice from this perspective to be able to see the big picture and focus on what really is important. And I think, when you spend 6 months away from family, you start to recognize even more so how important and how vital that is as a part of life.
Next we've got Alessia, who's also a member of staff.
Hi Tim. When you return to Earth, what procedures and processes are in place to facilitate coming back? How does your body and mind cope with it all after being up in space for months at a time?
That's a great question. I'll find out in here in about 4 weeks exactly what's going through my mind and how my body feels. I can tell you that from my previous experience, I didn't feel great at all for a couple of days. And I hope that this time, just because your body and your mind remembers the experience up here, which is a very strange thing. Coming up here, I felt very comfortable right off the bat, as opposed to maybe a little bit of nausea and disorientation. It felt as if I'd been here just a short time before, even though years had elapsed. But once we get back home, we go through about 45 days of rehabilitation, and we stay pretty strong and pretty fit up here because it's really important that we exercise a couple hours every day in order to maintain our bone density and our muscle mass. And so as a consequence, we go home in pretty decent shape. But even so, your neurovestibular system, your whole balance system completely shuts off up here. And so you can tumble, you can do flips, you can change orientation, and it feels completely natural. But then once you get back to gravity, your body had really liked zero gravity, and it doesn't like 1G for a while until you get used to it again. And so we spend a lot of time with trainers trying to retrain our neurovestibular system so that we can have our balance back in order. And so it's about 45 days. And I think, a lot of you go back and have a small transition, not a major one, but a small transition, going from living with 6 people on board and now being surrounded by all this additional stimulus. And I think that probably takes a little bit of time just to get used to normal life again. But it's, I have lots of friends who've done this before. It's nothing dramatic, but it's a shift that we all go through.
Next one is from Maggie Wu, a MIF 2016.
Hello team, nice speaking to you. A big thank you from Earth. My question is, what do you think of the idea of space travel for normal people as a form of tourism?
I really hope that someday space travel is like air travel now, right? I mean, there was a transition from very brave people that experiment planes to the extent that we were able to make them reliable and for people to be able to fly across continents, intercontinentally, and for it not to be a big deal for the most part. But I think for flying in space, it's going to be a little bit of a longer transition, because flying to space is very unforgiving. And there's lots of very dramatic and traumatic examples that we know of, especially at NASA, that remind us that it is a very, very difficult process getting to space. And the other part about normal people that are not trained for this particular job going to space is that it's wildly expensive. You know, I thankfully didn't have to pay for this trip. My government's paid for this trip, but if I had to pay for it out of my pocket, you know, I would have had to have gone to business school much earlier. So, someday I hope that someday we can make this transition, but it's going to be time. And you know, I think it's fascinating. We have these innovators out there, SpaceX and Virgin Galactic and other companies that are looking at ways that we can get people to space. And that first step is the suborbital flight. And as we get through that hurdle, I think we'll see how it goes. It's just going to be like back in the day when we had experimental aircraft with jets, and we learned a lot, but it took a while, and we made huge advancements, and we'll take that same step-by-step process, and hopefully everyday people can buy their ticket and come to space.
Next question is from Dominique, of course, from your own class, who has come with the younger generation to wish you well.
Hi Tim, I have Alexandra with me who's wearing your beautiful Tim Kopra Expedition 47 t-shirt. Hi Tim. My question is most leaders. My question is most leaders have one or two key relationships. People who tell them the truth, provide challenge and insight, or lend a helping hand. Do you have any such relationship on board the space station?
Well, first of all, hello, Dominique, and it's great to hear your voice. I miss all of my classmates, and it'll be great to get back home and to catch up. In terms of relationships, you know, it's very unique being here on Space Station with 6 people because by its very nature and out of requirements for us to be able to function effectively, we're all very, very in tune with each other. We're all very sensitive to what each other is doing and how people feel, and so there's a strong sense of camaraderie and also compassion to make sure that we all make it through, because every day is perfect, and we're not always in great moods, but sometimes you know, we just need a little bit of space from each other. Sometimes we're in great moods and we have this opportunity to share, and so by and large I think that you know, having this close working relationship that we have started well before this mission and then just develops and becomes stronger once we're on board, I think that, you know, the answer is yes, we do have the ability to confide in each other. And you know, that's a little bit different, I think, than what you're referring to, where you have a senior leader in an organization who has someone that he can confide in, maybe in the chain of command, maybe not. It's a little bit different here in that, you know, we have a chain of command, but by and large it's very egalitarian in terms of our relationship and our work. You know, the one time that it becomes, you know, much more straightforward in terms of a chain of command relationship is in emergency situations, and thankfully we really haven't had too many of those. But you know, when that occasion, if that occasion does occur, by having that ability for us to be in tune with each other and to understand each other closely, it makes it that we can be much more effective.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Annie Scow from the staff side.
Hi Tim, thank you so much for being with us. This is hands down the coolest event that London Business School has ever done. I've been here 6 years and we have done thousands of events. This is fantastic. So when you're 90, what sights and sounds...
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. When you're 90, what sights and sounds and feelings from your time in space do you think you'll remember?
I think I'll remember how natural this feels. That's odd, right? It's just a testament to how our brains and our body are so attuned to adapt to our environment, even if it's a very bizarre and surreal environment like zero gravity. But I really love your question because it's insightful, and it gives me pause to think about what's truly important up here. I'll remember the sunrises and the sunsets, the thunderstorms at night, the night cities over our planet. I'll remember how black it is when you look beyond Earth, and the sense that there's this huge void out there, and we're in large measure alone in that respect. I'll remember when we prepare for our spacewalks, we have these bags that are full of batteries or these different cartridges, and they make this certain noise when you rattle them because everything's floating together and they're knocking against each other, and that noise reminds me of space. I'll remember the smell after you come back in after a spacewalk. There's a very unique smell which makes no sense, right? Because you've been exposed to vacuum, but that smell is very distinct. But probably most importantly, I'll remember the sense of team that comes from this experience, because this team is enormous. We have the 6 people up here on board, but there's a team of people that trained with us and trained us for 2.5 years to be ready for this mission. There's a mission control at each one of the different international partners that provides the support so that we can do our job every day. There's just a huge team and a sense of satisfaction for me personally that everybody is so focused on this very important goal, which is human spaceflight. And so I'm certain when I'm 90, I'll look back on this and remember that I was so fortunate to have the opportunity to work with an amazing team that was so focused and so dedicated. So in addition to some of these visuals and sights and sounds, I think I'll just be very grateful in the long run for this opportunity.
Simon, can you do what Simon does?
Hello Tim, I'm a huge fan. In your opinion, what can we do to encourage a new generation of children to become interested in science?
So I understand, what does it take to make children interested in science? I can give you my personal experience, and my personal experience is that when I was 6 years old, we were landing men on the moon. And as a young person, I mean, how cool is that, right? Being a 6-year-old and watching these people do something that no one has ever done before. And I think for me, it really lit a fire. And it was a fire that as a child was, just a foolish childhood dream, that childhood dream of becoming an astronaut and flying in space. Completely ridiculous, right? But having big goals like that and big dreams like that is a huge motivator. And even if I hadn't been so fortunate to have this job, I would have taken a path that was completely in line with science and math and engineering and technology, simply because I was motivated as a child. And so I think it's important that nations and the international community sets big goals so that we can demonstrate that we can do these great things. And what that does, what it did for me, and what I think it can do for other young people, is it makes this very strong and realistic connection between math and science and engineering, which sounds like a school subject, to something that's real, like this International Space Station. I remember flying away from Space Station last time I was here, and talk about breathtaking. Look at this enormous structure that was built by an international team. I mean, it's almost an impossible thing to imagine how beautiful and how complex this space station is when you fly away from it. And for me, it directly connects to the education that I've received over time that's been very oriented towards science and math and engineering and technology. So I think it's so important that we motivate people, young people, when they're very young, because those dreams stick with them and they become a driving force up until you're my age. And I'm still excited about it, and it all started from being a child and people doing great things that I admired.
Hey, can I take you?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Tim. I just have a quick question about, are you worried about meteors or space debris or the black hole?
No, it's a good question, right? Because we are exposed to risk up here, and we all recognize that. The way the structure is built here, we have shields on all of the structures, and they protect for everything that's about the size of a marble and smaller. There are national assets and international assets, I'm certain, that are able to identify objects that are about the size of a baseball and larger. So there's a middle category there where we kind of work off the premise of big sky, little bullet. But at the same time, we are very well trained if we had some sort of depressurization event for us to react quickly and be able to save the part of station that we can. And at the end of the day, if we can't isolate the leak, for us to go back home. And so we recognize that and we think about it, but you know, it's almost something that you have to force yourself to remember because it feels so safe here and it feels so normal. But on the other side of this thin metal shell is a vacuum, which is not hospitable to human life. And so we don't take it for granted. And sometimes you have to remind yourself that we are only protected by what we have here, the shell, the life support system on board. But at the same time, we feel very well trained so that even if there is an unfortunate event and some sort of incident on station, we strongly believe that we're well trained and we have the equipment to get us back home and get us there safely.
Tim, one last one if we may. Nandi, who's MBA 17.
Hi Tim, I'm Nandi from the EMBAG2013 batch. Hello. So I have a 3-year-old.
Hello.
Hi. And my 3-year-old son, all he wants to do is become an astronaut when he grows up. And as a parent, I'm very happy, but I'm very scared too, because I know about the dangers, which he doesn't. So as another parent, how can I hold back all my fears and let him be whatever he wants to be in future, even if that means having a cool and dangerous job as being an astronaut?
You know, it's kind of a parenting question, right? You know, how do you guide your children, even if it's something that may give you pause or make you afraid as a parent. You know, I have a son who's at a military academy right now, and he'll be going off and joining the military. And we're very proud of him, but at the same time, you know, we'll worry about him. So I think that I think it's important to encourage kids to follow their dreams, because for me personally, even though as a small kid who wanted to be an astronaut and becoming older and then realizing it was an impossible dream and then somehow getting reinvigorated to work towards it more closely, it is so important, I think, for all of us to find that thing that we're passionate about, because once you find that spark that really lights your fire, that really motivates you, then it allows you to accomplish great things. So I would never diminish someone's enthusiasm for whatever their goal happens to be, whether it's an astronaut or to be a great business leader or to be a national leader. I think whatever someone is motivated to do, I think that they should follow that passion closely. And as a parent, you know, we've tried to encourage our children to do the same. And I think in the long run, young people are better for it, and they can end up with a rewarding career and a rewarding life in the long term. So as last question, I guess I get to close this out. I wanted to thank all of the opportunity to chat with you tonight. I only wish that I had video so I could see all of you. It's a unique position here to have a camera. I feel like an anchorman kind of looking at a camera and share the experience. But someday I'll be able to get back to London Business School and see all of you in person. But it's been a pleasure talking with all of you, and I wish all of you the very, very best.
Thank you very much.